Western Teacher Live, talking about public education, unionism and much more.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of Western Teacher Live, the podcast of the State School Teachers Union of Western Australia. My name is Bob Figg and with me is Matt Jarman, President of the SSTUWA, who is here to discuss a significant development in the enterprise bargaining process around the school's general agreement, which has seen the SSTUWA executive issue a directive for members to undertake a half-day stop work meeting on 23 April if no agreement in principle is reached by the 19th of April. Matt, this is the first time the SSTUWA has directed such an action in a decade. That shows how serious the situation is regarding the negotiation process.
It certainly does, Bob. Teachers and school leaders are overworked, they're underpaid and they are utterly fed up. And now we have a derisory offer from the Department of Education which was rejected and no follow-up. It shows a lack of respect for our teachers and our school leaders. The procrastination from the department at a time when members are suffering massive cost of living pressures and when schools are experiencing massive workloads, increasing violence, which has been well documented throughout the mainstream media, and an ever-growing teacher shortage has simply infuriated our members, and they've really had enough. Our members are overworked, as I mentioned before, they're underpaid, and they are over it.
And so what exactly do the new directives say? Because we've had one set of directives already, so what's the difference this time?
Well, fundamentally, the direction from executive is to continue the current actions, which is to not participate in performance management or any performance review processes or meetings, and that includes the PPR, or otherwise known as the Principals Professional Review Process. That's in line with 9.3 of the General Agreement, also for staff meetings. So the 5 hours per term, not to attend any meetings outside instructional hours, which includes before or after school, during lunch and recess. School leaders, that includes regional cluster and network meetings, or not to attend staff meetings during the dot time, which would be the same, Bob, outside of industrial dispute conditions. But it does seem to have to be strongly re-emphasised all the time that our teachers have dot for dot purposes and not for any other.
And the additional directive is to undertake this stop work meeting on the 23rd of April. Now, that's going to take place on the morning of the 23rd, and obviously it will impact on all public schools and have ramifications for students and parents.
Yes, it will, and it's not a decision that the executive comes to easily or lightly. We've been trying to avoid any impact on students and parents. Our members have been urging us to escalate the stage 1 to 2 directives, given that they felt that there was a standstill almost in negotiations from their point of view through the staff room. But I am confident that the department will look at their own review into the issues around public schools, such as the Minister's report into red tape, that the department itself spent about $90,000 of taxpayers' money on, and it states in that Minister's red tape report that the teacher's job has become simply undoable. But sadly, we're towards the end of March almost, and they've dragged their feet and they've forced teachers and our executive as a consequence to this point of a stop work action on the morning of the 23rd of April.
Now, from an external point of view, some people will say this is just about salaries.
Well, it is significantly about salaries. Our teachers, by way of example, were some of the highest paid in the country in 2017. They are no longer close to that. Salaries, though, is just one item. Are salaries important? Absolutely. But teachers and school leaders, along with many, many other tens of thousands of public sector workers, they bore the brunt of budget repair from 2017 onwards. $1,000 capped saw the CPI and the wage price index far exceed what they were receiving in their back pocket. And we saw our educators fall behind the rate of inflation. What we have now is members who we are aware of who have moved home with their parents or who cannot afford fuel for their cars, or in certain parts of the state they can't afford to buy fresh fruit and vegetables. That said, we've got 90 other items in the log of claims, and that includes red tape, addressing the fact that WA has the largest or equal to largest class sizes anywhere in the country, and fixing the fundamental system issues which are besetting our public education system, which is not only identified by the red tape report, but we're also really well educated through the Facing the Facts report that we independently commissioned.
Now, again, the issue with this is that there is support out there in the community and an understanding of a lot of these issues. Is there a risk teachers lose public support once action starts to inconvenience parents?
Well, we very much hope not. My message to parents is now is the time to support your public school teacher and public school leader. If you don't, then what will it end up looking like? We commissioned the research that I mentioned before. We also commissioned survey and focus groups, and we found that the public interest of public education is regarded as very serious by people in the community. Over 70% of them said that they understand that there's too much red tape, and more than 60% said that they think class sizes are simply too big. They don't understand how teachers can effectively do their job. So the public knows where the problems are, and they want the problems to be addressed by government, particularly in the regions where those figures are really rising. When teachers and school leaders take action to improve conditions in schools, we all know they are acting to improve the experience and outcomes for students. And I think parents completely and clearly understand that at the moment. From those survey results, over 80% agree that all children deserve a quality education, and that quality education relies upon a system that works, a system that is connected, a system that respects teachers in every way by valuing their roles, a system that shows respect to the profession, and in terms of remuneration and in terms of reducing red tape, a system that takes them out of the classroom and into a situation where better outcomes are delivered for students.
So at the moment it's a directive, and for members you can find more information about all of this via your e-news. It's really important that you make sure you're subscribed to the e-news that comes from the SSTUWA. We try to keep sends to a minimum because nobody likes getting bombarded with emails. We understand that, but it's really important to keep up with that information. You know, also go on to the SSTUWA website, and when you log in as a member, you will automatically get a screen pop up to send you for more information around the general agreement process. So it is qualified by if an agreement in principle, and it's important we get the terminology correct because the media, understandably, they've got a short time frame. They tend to shorten that to offer. But the condition that executive have put around this directive is if an agreement in principle is reached by the 19th of April, then this action could be avoided.
That's exactly how it will hopefully play out, Bob. And the action to be avoided is something that we hope so. But that agreement in principle, not just a second offer, is what we have put out, and that is what the executive's directive is. What we need is for the department to take the negotiations seriously. We absolutely have to keep teachers that we have, and we have to start getting back some of those many, many thousands that we've lost. If we don't do something to retain our new starters, we have less new starters coming into initial teacher education than we've ever seen before, and we've got people who are in the 50 plus who are leaving at faster rates than we've ever seen before. That has to start. That's why we have to start with WA being an attractive place to work in terms of both lifestyle and salary. I think the Premier, Roger Cook, referenced when the salaries and tribunal bellowed an 8.4% rise on the state's highest paid public servants, whilst we're still waiting for the department to make an acceptable offer, that it was caused by attraction and retention. Well, he's recognised that salaries play a big part in attracting and retaining the public sector workforce in WA, and we want to attract and retain the best teachers and our school leaders, and we want to give them a reason to stay, particularly in our regional areas. The Premier also recognised the cost of living crisis that continues to face all West Australians. We saw that only earlier this week when $103 million was spent on bonus payments to parents of school-aged children. The cost of living pressures continues to face all West Australians, and we want that same sort of understanding applied to educators and indeed across all of the public sector.
And that is part of the role that the SSTUWA is playing with the Public Sector Alliance, of course, and again you can find out more on the SSTUWA website. It's also important, I think, to note that we do have a parallel podcast to this one, because we do get quite, how was this log of claims reached? And the Senior Vice President, Natalie Blewett, has done a podcast on that step through each process. It is a member-driven process. It's not the union imposing its views on its members. The members drive the whole process. And I think that's significant, Matt, because this log of claims preempted was in place long before Facing the Facts came out. It was in place long before the Red Tape report came out. And yet both of those have found a whole lot of stuff that certainly has an interrelationship with what is in the GA. And perhaps that's because the thousands of people who contribute to the GA development are all teachers and actually know what's happening in the classrooms.
One of the enjoyable parts of Term 1, not so enjoyable what we've had to listen to, but one of the most enjoyable parts of Term 1 this year has been going to the district council meetings and listening to members all around the state. And what we are finding is that the messages are, again, quite consistent. What they are expected to pay for, what they are expected to do, when they are expected to do it. And not only that, but what they're putting up with in terms of aggression, whether it be physical or verbal violence, is just consistent across the entire state. And that in of itself is something that I think is a little bit on the unprecedented. In the past, we might have seen outer metropolitan areas or particular parts of regional WA where there were hotspots. I'm going to all sorts of parts of Western Australia and seeing these issues. So the membership is absolutely united, and the membership is absolutely demanding that we as the executive take further action, and that's exactly what we're doing now. We've put the clock on negotiations by saying April 23. The executive and the negotiating team have made themselves completely available to government to achieve that. It's now firmly back in the government's court to come not only up with a quality second offer, but to reach agreement in principle.
And of course, as part of that, although it's not, well, there are various claims in the GA which would help address the issue. But I do want to touch on something that's become very prevalent recently in the mainstream media, as you identified earlier, and that's the issue of violence. And we've seen reports that the Principals Wellbeing Surveys found WA has the highest levels of school leaders who've thought about self-harm, such is the pressure they're under. Now, that's going to hit home for a lot of people, not least yourself. You're a principal yourself of a primary school for many years. This is something that this general agreement needs to tackle as well, isn't it?
It is, and I don't wish to add any further fuel to the fire, but those statistics are all based upon those that have been reported. We are aware through the office of many, many schools where many, many violent incidences are not still being reported. So I would urge members to go to our QR code that we've set up for violence reporting and make sure that, as a member, incidences are reported. For example, I'm aware yesterday of a primary school age student who had to be restrained by police because he was belting people with a baseball bat. That was unreported. We're also aware of a school yesterday in Perth that went into lockdown. That was unreported. We need everything to be reported because the picture from listening to members is far worse than what the statistics, which are bad enough, are revealing. We have significant reporting of all of these issues through the mainstream media, so it beggars belief to understand that the government or the system itself is not looking at how they can resolve this problem immediately with a resource injection. The complex behaviour team support for our system at the moment consists of 16 teachers spread across 47 schools in a system of 850 schools. It is completely inadequate to the size of the problem that we currently have, and we are trying to address that through the log of claims as well.
Yes, well, that and many other serious issues being addressed through the log of claims. A couple of things that members should know, that is there is a lot more information to come about the process that will be followed around the half-day stop work should it go ahead. We will be updating people regularly, so please keep an eye on your emails, keep an eye on your social media from the SSTUWA, because there's a lot of information to come flowing out. And a message, of course, for non-members, and that is these GA negotiations decide your future. not just union members, but your future. And you don't get a say in this process if you're not a member of the SSTUWA. So please join up and have your voice heard along with everyone else. Matt, thank you very much. It's going to be a very busy time for you and everyone else at the SSTUWA, but the time has come for this sort of action.
Look, it is, and we embrace the opportunity that we've got to address the matters that are in public education. We're in a privileged position to be able to do that on behalf of our members. I just want to say thank you to all of our members who have shown a willingness in greater numbers to come to District Council and to share the perspectives of what's going on in the schools. That's so critical. And I also want to say thank you to all of our school leaders who are doing their very, very best during these work bans. This is a situation that I never thought that I'd find myself in, but this is where we're at. We need to deal with the reality of what's going on, otherwise it's simply not going to get any better. And that is exactly the point that Dr. Lawrence makes in the Facing the Facts report. If we don't address these problems now, if not, when? And what will it look like? And that's what the public needs to be reminded of if we don't address these issues. So yes, it's going to be busy, but we're looking forward to the opportunity, and hopefully government will be listening.
Well, thank you, Matt, and thank you all for listening to Western Teacher Live. And as I said, check out Natalie Blewett's podcast on the process followed through the general agreement. But most importantly, take action. It's your conditions and your salaries that are on the line. Thank you very much.
Western Teacher Live, cutting through noise on public education and union issues.